Hey there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. I'm the mom and I do the movie reviews. And my goal is to save you time and money by giving you the inside scoop on filmmaking quality and content so that you can decide whether or not you want to spend time or money or both sometimes watching a particular film. So today, the film I'm reviewing is called Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin. I'm very excited to tell you about this. It's a riveting drama based on a true story, and it opens in theaters on November 22nd, 2024, just in time for Thanksgiving. The film is rated PG-13. It's in 2 hours and 15 minutes long, which is a pretty long movie, but my overall movie review mom grade is an A. I really enjoyed this and thought it was very well done. I'm going to explain my grade and I'll give you an overview in a nutshell. Then I'll point out things I liked, things I didn't like. I'll offer tips for parents, themes worth talking about if you watch this with other people, funny lines, interesting lines, and we'll finish up with recommendations for other films that are sort of similar that I think you might also really like. But before we dive into all of that, let me introduce today's sponsored featured product. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote this fascinating book, among many others, and it's one of his most famous. So if you want to learn more about him and his faith that he talks about a lot in this film, I think you might enjoy it. The link is down below in the description. It's an Amazon affiliate link, so it won't cost you any more to buy it, but Amazon will send me a few little pretty pennies to thank me for telling you that the book exists. All right, now back to the movie. In a nutshell, I just had recently watched the 2022 version of the movie called Bonhoeffer, Agent of Grace. And I wanted to be able to do that to compare it to this new one that's being released by Angel Studios. There are several other movies about this fascinating man's life. It's always interesting to me to see which part of a person's life filmmakers choose to feature in their biographical films. In this film, Bonhoeffer's faith and resistance to Hitler is the focus of the story. The original title of the movie was God's Spy, which I actually really like that title. The film was written, produced, and directed by Todd Komarnicki, who also brought us the movie Resistance back in 2003. Angel Studios has been knocking it out of the park with their recent films. Their distribution method with pre-sales also caught Hollywood's attention. It is so refreshing to be able to support a company that consistently puts out family-friendly, uplifting movies. So on to the list of things I really liked about this film. First of all, Jonas Dassler did an excellent job as Dietrich Bonhoeffer and even looked like the famous pastor's picture with blonde hair. I got such a kick out of seeing Flew Laborg in this. Do you know him? I didn't realize that he was in the cast until I saw him in the scene at about the 35-minute mark. I first discovered his funny YouTube channel about 10 years ago and then learned he could sing as well and dance in Pitch Perfect 2. Anyway, just kind of a fun side note for the cast. The entire cast does a terrific job. Beautiful cinematography. Fun fact, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a twin, and so am I. His twin sister's name was Sabine, and we see her as a young girl and as an older, well, a younger woman in the film. We learn how Hitler changed the Bible and German church during his unholy reign. Music is a powerful element in the movie, especially jazz and gospel music that stir the soul. The timing of Bonhoeffer's death is heartbreaking. The war ended only 2 weeks after he was murdered. Now, I guess that's a big spoiler unless you know history. Keep watching during the rolling credits to read words that Bonhoeffer wrote in some of his books and to see a statue of him that stands in Westminster Abbey today. It's one of 10 statues of a new collection called Modern Martyrs of the 20th Century, sculpted by Tim Crawley. Another statue of Bonhoeffer stands in front of St. Petri Church in Hamburg, Germany, of all places. Now, I really could only think of one thing that I didn't like about this movie, because like I said, I really enjoyed it. But some viewers might complain that we don't learn all of the details of Bonhoeffer's life, such as the engagement to Maria von Wedemeyer. That's much less important than his religious and resistance work anyway. And so it didn't bother me. And even in a movie clocking in over 2 hours, there just wasn't enough time to cover everything. We really get to the meat of this man and what was most important to him. And I thought it was well done. And the parts of his life that were selected, I thought were wise. Now, on to tips for parents. Another man hits another man with the end of a rifle, bloodying his face. So there's a tiny bit of violence. Cigarettes and alcohol are seen used. We see a dead person in a casket. There's talk of assassination. And we see a man with a noose around his neck. Other than that, it's not this bloody, gory movie that it could have been, because it's about World War II and the Holocaust. And so I thought it was tasteful and a nice introduction, or I should say maybe a somewhat gentle introduction to World War II and the Holocaust for children. Now, young children, I think, are going to be bored, but teenagers, especially those interested in World War II and history and that kind of thing, might be very interested. And I think it's okay for family viewing. Some of the themes that are illustrated very well are World War II, racism, hatred, religion, faith, truth, and resistance, of course. Now, whenever I watch movies, I write down the funny lines and interesting lines to share them with you so you can get a taste for the dialogue and the script writing quality. However, for the funny lines, I didn't write down anything, nothing really worth noting. This is not a comedy. It's a serious drama, although the movie begins with lighter moments during the Bonhoeffers' childhood, the family that we see living just a happy-go-lucky life. And then the beginning of World War II happens. But I wrote down a lot of interesting lines, and you can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com. So here's one. This is spoken by Frank Fisher, played by David Johnson. And he says, "You know, Dee, not every church has a steeple." I really, really liked that line, especially because as we saw during quarantine, during the last little pandemic, people were not allowed to go to church, including me. And we did Zoom church, which was awesome, but our home became our church. And honestly, a home should be a church if you're religious, and that the bulk of the religion should be taught in your home with your children and through practice and example and that kind of thing. So I thought that that was really cute. So one thing that we see in Bonhoeffer's life is that he goes to America and he meets Frank Fisher, who is a student, as they're both studying religion and theology and ministry and all of that. And so this Frank Fisher introduces him to racism in America. And Bonhoeffer says, like, wow, I'm glad we don't have anything like this in Germany. This is right before World War II, when the hatred for Jews was spewing among other people. But anyway, and so Frank Fisher says to him, "My brother, hate comes in every color. Your eyes just haven't been opened yet." And that's such a foreshadowing of what we're going to see during the rest of the movie, because that relationship, his deep friendship with Frank Fisher, begins towards the Act 1. Now, there's a point where everybody in the Bonhoeffer family realizes what's going on in Germany, and they're just like, "Oh, what are we going to do? How do we handle this?" And the father says something interesting. He says, "Hitler only has to fool the Germans who come out to vote." And I thought, oh, that's interesting, and especially relevant as America, the United States of America, is in the thick of a US presidential race. And get out and vote. Anyway, another interesting line is when Jonas, who plays Bonhoeffer, speaking with his father, and he says, "Well, surely rumor and rage cannot win the day." And then his father says, "Unless the day is already lost." And that, again, is still at the point where they're, what's happening and how bad is this going to be? And of course, nobody in the beginning could have ever imagined the horrors that would happen during World War II and the Holocaust. Another beautiful line is when Dietrich Bonhoeffer is trying to rally some of his other religious brothers to step up and face Hitler and confront him for what he's doing. And he says, "Our silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." And that's so brilliant, especially when we see so many crazy things, wrong things, and evil taking place in the world. We can't just go, "Oh, wow, the world is falling apart." We need to take action and do something positive. And then another bishop tells him it takes courage to face the dark, which is absolutely true. Another beautiful line was spoken by Paula Bonhoeffer, played by Nadine Heidenreich. Bonhoeffer says to her, the disciples scattered on Friday, right as before the crucifixion or at the crucifixion. And so Paula Bonhoeffer says to him, the disciples scattered on Friday, yes, but by Sunday, they were on their way to changing the world. And again, it's so fascinating to watch Bonhoeffer try to decide, is there anything he can even do that's going to make a difference? Does he risk his life to make a difference? Will it matter? And then another conversation is between Eberhard Bethage, played by William Robinson, and he says, is Hitler the first ruler since scripture was written? And then Jonas Dassler, plays Dietrich Bonhoeffer, says, no, but he's the first one I can stop. And I just went, oh, that's such a good line. Anyway, there's so many good lines. I want to tell you all of them, but I don't want this to be a 20-minute review. But anyway, you can see all of them on my written review. So while I watch movies, I instantly think of other films. And so here are 3 that I wanted to recommend that I think that you'll also really like. The first one is called Valkyrie. Now it stars Tom Cruise and is also based on a true story of some people who tried to stop Hitler, Germans, in fact. And it's very well done. And the whole time, if you don't know the story, you're like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And if you don't know history, don't look it up. Watch the movie, and then you'll really enjoy all of the suspense and the drama. And then another movie is one that came out just somewhat recently, starring the incredible Sir Anthony Hopkins, and it's called One Life. And it's a man during the Holocaust who tried to save some Jews. And he just did the little that he thought he could do to make a difference. He didn't think he was going to save the world, but he knew he could save a life or two. And I don't want to give it away, but it's slow moving. And I didn't know the story of his life and what he did. And by the end, you're just like, it's really good. And it's really powerful. And you're like, wow. And then the last one is one also that was filmed by this director called The Resistance that I mentioned earlier. Again, the links are down below. Click, you can go right to them. In the case of the last 2, you can also click to see my review of those. And in fact, I will queue up the movie One Life. So when this review ends, you can just automatically start watching that one and see if that's something that you like to watch. I don't know why I really enjoy World War II movies and Holocaust movies, even though they're very difficult to watch. But it just seems like out of a lot of the wars that have taken place on Earth, that is one that is clearly good versus evil. And the stories of heroism are just so inspirational. And this one is too. So I hope you appreciate it. Thank you for watching. When you get a minute, run over to Instagram. You can follow me there as Movie Review Mom, but also my author name, which is my real name, Trina Boice, where you can learn about my books, my online courses, my products, and my other shenanigans. Have a fantastic day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.